Yes, I've been playing this game for more than 6 years. Yes, I am aware I made 2 videos praising the innovative and resourceful part 2 of Honkai Impact 3rd. Yes, my PNG tuber picture is literally a PNG from the London Holiday manga. No, I do not hate Honkai Impact 3rd even in its current state. But I'll be damned if I don't feel cheated and disappointed by the game to the point where I can't even bring myself to look at it on my desktop, let alone play it. It is a sad state of affairs, sure, and I know one can't have everything they want in life. But to see my once favorite gacha game of all time dip so low and lose all that made me attached to it so fast hurts a lot, and is the reason I made this video. So listen up to what I have to say, then feel free to reply in the comments about your thoughts on the subject, and don't forget to subscribe. Honkai Impact 3rd to me was my favorite gacha game because of its uniqueness. It stood out from the other cash grab trash gacha games by having developers who actually loved their game. You could feel the love put into the characters, sense the growth in their journey across the story, while enjoying beautiful cinematics at the end of most major arcs and listening to the slapping tracks that they made. It was so far up my alley that I had used it as a standard to judge other games from, and up until Part 2's release, it was still holding up in my estimations. The Part 1 finale, the Part 1.5's ending, and everything in between felt like the icing on the cake, the crescendo to a symphony. And when Part 2 began, I was beyond hyped for the massive upgrades. There was an open world, there was aerial combat, and there were new characters. In fact, you can go back and watch my hype firsthand in the videos that I made back then. Cinnalina's patch was perfection. The story is slow and smooth, ending with the spectacular boss fight against Duniger. The cinema patch came and it was more of the same thing. Cool stuff, nice, though it did slightly leave me wondering where they were going with the story, as it felt slightly all over the place. Then Lantern's patch straightened out those doubts by creating such a sick and interesting character. All in all, everything was well and good. And then the Sonchi patch came and it was spectacular. The perception boss fight, the lead up to the fight itself, the animated shorts, perfection. Up to this point, everything was exactly the way it should. The story was going in the right direction. But then, everything went to shit. I don't know how they managed to mess it up. They had such a fantastic setup, but then they completely ruined it. Lee Tost is not a good villain. Not in this game, where we had people like Otto and Kevin as the previous antagonists. The reveal about Lila was cool, but the fact that Mars is a simulation is dogshit. Why? Because it renders everyone we messed up to this point is completely null and void. I've heard people say that it's fine, that everything is just a simulation, that just because the characters aren't real doesn't mean that the story can't be good. Using Elysian Realm as an example to defend the story. But that just doesn't work, for 2 reasons. 1. The characters in the Elysian Realm had deep ties to the real life story. We've heard of them before and even get to meet some of them in reality, which already makes them infinitely more interesting and real than those NPCs on Mars. Second, is the fact that those are literally NPCs on Mars. They're not copies of the real people who lived there. They're made up based on the data that Mars computer gathered from its observations. There's nothing to suggest they're anything like the real inhabitants who lived there prior, which automatically renders any comparison to the Flame Chasers null and void, because those are exact replicas made with their personalities and thought processes in mind, while the others are not. So by all means, yes, Mars being a simulation does infinitely make the story less impactful and with infinitely lower stakes, which brings me to the next point. Coralie's death. Don't get me wrong, I love when a character is properly ended for the sake of evolving another. Himeko and Kiana's story being the biggest and most perfect example of that. But holy shit if this isn't such a pathetic excuse to right-click delete a character they didn't know what to do with now that we have Einstein, Tesla, and the rest of tech support on the phone. Coralie was an exposition character. She was the smart, funny kid and I loved her for that. Her sense of humor and even the simple things like her character design and color palettes made her very endearing to me. But now that we have exposition characters by a handful, she was no longer necessary. And so, they disposed of her like a dog. And for what? For a half-assed attempt at giving Helia the spotlight. Like, Don't even get me started on how terrible that whole chapter is. Like seriously, who thought it was a reasonable idea to have Helia become jealous of Durandal? Durandal is the strongest pure human on Earth, period. She has the genes of a Kaslana and Sharyak in her blood. She wielded the Abyss Flower and saved the entire world. And you're telling me that this no-name A-rank with no real feats who idolized her for so long suddenly has a headache about how weaker she is than her? Well, no shit, Sherlock, that shouldn't be a shock to you. Why else would you have idolized her if not for her being better than you? Like, I get why she would feel regret for being weak and not being able to save Coralie, but to compare herself to Durandal is where I draw the line. Also, that bullshit dark side yandere they gave her makes even less sense. Hear this. She knows she's weak. She knows she couldn't save her friend from Litost. And she has allies who are much stronger than she is and probably will ever be. So, what does she do? Is it A. Lose the will to fight and let her allies deal with Litost? B. Gather up her strength and let her wish for revenge fuel her as she helps her allies? C. Ignore revenge entirely and try to find a way to bring her back? Or D. Go apeshit crazy and attack Litost on your own despite knowing you can take him on alone? It's D. She chose D. It gets even worse when you think back to her timid and calm personality that she showed all that time. Always sounding sensible and following instructions. But now all of a sudden, when she needs to be the most sensible and where any rash action could cause her or her allies to be in more danger, she decides to go full crazy mode. Yeah, I ain't buying it. Remember when I was super excited for the open world aspect of the game and all the promises it could bring?
The movement is fantastic. They absolutely nailed it. And keep in mind, this is just the first patch of part 2. I'm absolutely expecting them to give us the ability to run up walls, Timido style, or hell, maybe even a glider or wings to fly with eventually.
Well, where are they? Where's the climbing I was waiting for? Where's the flying parkour I expected? It's been more than a year since I made that video and we got nothing of the sort. It's still just walk from point A to point B with the occasional grappling hook needed. I wanted APHO 3. I wanted more movement options, more fiddling with the open world, but we got literally nothing to improve on what we got day 1. So yeah, in my opinion, Honkai Impact Part 2 is no longer worth it. Not until the story picks up pace again at some point, and even then, it'll still be painful to see them try to salvage whatever they can from this pathetic scenario they locked themselves into. So, yeah, this was Imaginary Watcher, and I'll see you guys around. Peace. And don't forget to subscribe and press the like button if you agree, and leave your opinion down below in the comment section. Now for real, goodbyes.